we are almost at the end of 2024. As of today, the 22nd of November, there's only 39 days left in the year until we're into 2025. And it's a crazy time of year. It's a scary time of year, to be honest, because I feel like it's in this moment or in kind of November, December period where people, or at least someone like myself and probably like you, have this realization of what could have been if you did all the things that you said you were going to do at the start of the year. You start to compare where you wanted to be to where you are. And for some of us, that feels amazing. We feel like we've had an incredible year. We've made strides towards what we want to achieve. And we can kind of finish the year off knowing that we gave it our best. And then there's another group of us that maybe didn't use the year as much as they wanted to and haven't achieved as much as you wanted to achieve. And this is a scary part of the year because all of those actions, all of the things that you said you were going to do, all of the things that you didn't end up doing, all kind of come to pasture in one single moment, and you're bombarded with the reality of what could have been if you actually took this year the way that you said you were going to this time last year when we were having this conversation at the end of 2023. And so regardless of which side of that fence that you sit on, whether you're stoked with what you've achieved or you're feeling a little down about what you didn't do this year, right now is an incredible opportunity to start to map out what you're going to do next year. Because rather than thinking about it as this abstract idea of 12 months from now, I want to achieve whatever, you can think about being on November 22nd, 2025, and experiencing this moment again 12 months from now and what you want to feel then. Because that should give you this visceral understanding of this time, this next 12 months is going to go like that. And you've either done the things you said you were going to do right now in this moment, or you didn't. You can either feel exactly how you feel right now, but a year older, or you can feel incredible with what you've achieved. And so in today's video, I want to give you 5 things that you can do today that will set you up to have an incredible 2025. But before I do that, in case you're sitting there right now wondering who the fuck is this guy and why should I listen to him about how to have an incredible 2025? My name's Tom Noske. I'm a content creator, and in the last 2 years, from 2022 till now, I've built my online education business from 0 to 7 figures per year, and we're now on track to do probably 2 or 3 million in the next 12 months with this business. So I've transformed my life completely. In 2022, I had this moment that you're going through right now. In the beginning of 2022, I sat down and had a conversation with my now fiance and spoke about the prospect of going and getting a job. I'd been an entrepreneur. I'd been making an income off my own back for 5 years at that point. No, 6 years at that point. Multiple failed businesses, multiple failed ventures, a really unremarkable history of doing just whatever anyone would pay me for as a freelancer and calling it entrepreneurship. And so at the beginning of 2022, I was kind of back against the wall, realizing that I either needed to figure this the fuck out or I was gonna have to go and get a job. And we had a conversation about redoing my resume, going and looking for work and seeing what happens. And that moment was kind of my moment where I really, truly recognized for the first time that I either needed to do this or I was going to quit. And over the next 12 months in 2022, I went from that situation to, by the end in November of 2022, I made $49,688 in a single month. This can change really quickly. Obviously, I had those 6 years of entrepreneurship behind me up until that point, but that year turned into the year where everything changed. And for a lot of you watching this video right now, I'm certain that 2025 can be that year for you. The first thing I want you to do, and you can do this right now, pull out a pen and paper, and I want you to write down a giant, unreasonable goal. Something so big that it seems like a complete waste of time even thinking about it. In terms of context, for me in 2022, up until that point, my business had only ever had a record month of 12,000 Australian dollars from doing freelance work. So that was wedding bookings, shooting for gyms, taking photos. Freelance altogether had only ever made me 12,000 Australian dollars in a single month. And that year in 2022, I set myself the giant unreasonable goal of making 50,000 US dollars in a single month before the end of the year from digital product sales alone. And look, for context, up until that point, I'd only ever sold one other digital product that was a complete and utter failure. And so I had no business setting myself this goal. It might as well have been me landing on the fucking moon, but I set the goal anyway. I wanted to make $50,000 in a single month from digital products alone before the end of the year. And the beautiful thing happens when you set a giant, unreasonable goal is it forces you to think bigger. It forces you to think of the actions that are required to achieve something that you previously thought was impossible. And by breaking down the actions that would be required in order for you to achieve something massive, you start to actually reverse engineer the goal. And you start to do the outputs that would be required for you to achieve it. A great example of this is if I had to set myself the goal of making 20,000 Australian dollars in a single month, I might have thought that doing it freelance would be possible. But by setting the goal so far beyond what I would be able to achieve with freelance, I knew that making content would be my number one priority for that year because I would only be able to achieve that with an enormous volume of traffic. And so setting that giant goal forced me to reprioritize my focus on something that in that moment was not making me money, but in the future had the ability to make me money. So set a giant fucking goal, something so big, it seems like a complete waste of time to even think about it. And then start to reverse engineer what you would need to do in order to achieve it. Because the reality for most of you is that unless you've been exposed to it through your friends, through family, through people around you, big numbers, there's no reality that you can associate with that big number. If you want to make $100,000 in a month, but you've never made $100,000 in a year and you don't know anyone who's ever made $100,000 in a month, the idea of what you would need to do in order to achieve that is completely unrealistic because you've never been exposed to that reality. And so by thinking bigger, by setting a bigger goal, it makes those inconceivable, completely unrealistic realities somewhat realistic because you're forced to think about how you would achieve it. And the reason for that is because the actions required to achieve a $10,000 month are completely different from the actions required to achieve a $100,000 month, and those are completely different from the actions required to achieve $1 million month. But if you're focused on what you currently think is achievable, you are only going to take actions up to the level of what you currently think is achievable. So you have to force your brain to think bigger. And when you think bigger, you'll start to identify opportunities that align with that bigger goal. And the other part of this is once you set that goal and you write it down and you start to map out what you would need to do to achieve it, you start to get some of the feeling of what that would be like to achieve it. If you've only ever made a couple $1,000s a month and you set yourself the goal of making $50,000 in a single month, think about how that would change your life. Think about how that would feel to achieve. Think about how different your life would be on the other side of accomplishing that goal. And that in itself will motivate your action towards it. By starting to recognize the delta between where you are now and where you want to be and where you could be if you achieve that goal, you'll start to take more action towards it because you'll be more motivated by the feeling of eventually accomplishing it. Number 2 is I want you to take that goal, and once you've figured out the action steps or the outputs you would need to take in order to achieve it, I want you to create an output-based reward system. Because what you'll quickly realize after you set that giant unreasonable goal is that the only thing standing between you and achieving that goal is an ungodly amount of work and time. And for most of that work and time, it will be completely unrewarded. There will be months on end where all you are doing is taking action with no perceivable benefit, gain, or reward. Life and business and doing this is kind of like a video game, except the checkpoints and the mile markers and the achievements unlocked are way further apart. In a video game, you'll walk around one corner and there'll be an achievement and then a checkpoint and then a thing to pick up and then something else. And the reason for that is it wants to keep giving you that dopamine in short succession so you continue to progress forward. The issue with life is those checkpoints and achievements are way further apart. So most people just simply do not make it the full distance. They get started on something and they don't realize that if they just lasted a little bit longer, they would have had that achievement that would have kept them going, but they quit before they get there. And so something you can do is set yourself an output-based reward system. Set yourself a series of things that you will do if you achieve a certain output. For me back in 2022, I used this to manipulate my desire to work. I would emotionally manipulate myself into doing the work by promising myself things if I did certain tasks. For me, I love going out for dinner on the weekends. I love going out for a nice dinner on the weekends. And so I told myself on a week where I posted 14 pieces of content, twice a day on Instagram, 14 total pieces of content on the Saturday night, I could go out for a nice dinner and spend a little bit more money than I probably should. And by doing that every single week, I started to associate the work that I was doing, the 14 pieces of content, with the dinner I got to have at the end of the week. Because the reality is all you need to do in order to achieve everything you've ever wanted is take more action for longer than everyone else. That's it. The only difference between me sitting on this side of the screen, achieving what I've achieved over the last 8 years and living the life I get to live, is that I've taken more action over a longer period of time than the majority of people. That's it. That's all I've done. And if you can build systems, if you can build ways to reward yourself and get you to almost manipulate yourself into doing more action over a longer period of time, then you will win. And I think the best way to do that is to create an output-based reward system. And I still do this now. I've told myself, and I might even show an overlay of this, I have what I call my gold Rolex targeting system. And I've told myself that if I can produce 1 YouTube video and write 2 sales emails every single week for the next 2 years, I'm able to go and buy myself a yellow gold GMT Master 2. Even though writing those 2 emails and making that YouTube video every single week for the next 2 years may make me enough money to buy that watch 100 times over, even though that is the reality, I'm associating buying that watch with taking the action. And so every week when I get to this point where I have to record these videos, rather than thinking about the abstract idea of the eventual success of what this will give me, I'm thinking about buying that fucking watch. And I know that all I need to do is check the box this week, and eventually I will get to buy that watch. And so create a reward system. It doesn't need to be much. Maybe you really like a certain beer, and so you only drink that beer on nights where you've done a certain task during the day. I love an old fashioned, and I'm guilty of drinking them a little too often. And so I should probably create a reward system where I'm only allowed to have an old fashioned on a night where I've filmed a YouTube video. And then I'll start to associate filming these YouTube videos with having an old fashioned at the end of the day. Number 3, I want you to commit to these next 12 months being the most difficult 12 months of your life. I think a lot of people romanticize the idea of work, romanticize the idea of entrepreneurship, romanticize the idea of changing your life because it is a romantic idea, this cool idea of going out on your own and achieving what you've only dreamt of achieving. It is an incredible thing to do, and there is a reality on the other side of this where I get to live a pretty fucking incredible life as a result of the work that I've done. I get to drive a nice car, I get to wear nice watches, I get to go on holidays, live in a big, beautiful house. My family has, or my fiance and I have full economic security. I don't really need to work for much longer, which is an insane reality to even comprehend. So there is a world where you do get to reap the rewards of your labor. But in the stage that most of you are at right now, it will be the most difficult 12 months of your life, and probably the most difficult 24, 36 months of your life. And if you don't know that going in, you may encounter that difficulty and not realize that it is a feature, not a bug. It is part of what this reality is. It's part of changing your life. Part of changing your life is losing friends, potentially losing relationships, losing your free time. You may lose a part of you that you've held on to for your entire life. Some of you will have to be let go in order to achieve what you want to achieve, and that will be incredibly difficult. And if you are on this journey of wanting to truly change your life next year, you have to be okay with this being the most difficult period of your life. I can be candid with you for a second, but from 2022 till now, I've only really gotten on the other side of that painfully difficult period in the last few months. I had a stint at the beginning of this year where I had worked myself to the bone between 2022 and the end of 2023 for a solid, a 2-year period. I'd worked myself to the bone, or so close to the bone that my health was teetering on the edge of completely falling apart. I was experiencing bizarre health symptoms that scared the living fuck out of me. I was getting intense brain fog to the point where I couldn't concentrate on my work for any period more than half an hour. I would watch TV shows and not be able to keep up with what was going on screen. My anxiety was through the fucking roof to the point where I was going to the doctors every other week with some weird symptom that I was convinced was cancer. I was so stressed working as hard as I did that it almost completely destroyed my health. But I wouldn't trade it for anything because it has now given me the life that I live. And so it's only getting on the other side of that now, on the other side of that enormous amount of work that I had to do in that period, that I'm able to comfortably look back and say it was worth it. And it 100% was. Hands down, 100% it was worth it. And so I want you to know that this will be the most difficult year of your life. If you do it properly, it will be the hardest 12 months you ever go through. Number 4 is, for the next 12 months, I want you to avoid being paralyzed by choice at all costs. One of the biggest things that I see hurting so many of the creators I speak to online is they are completely paralyzed by what to do. They want to take action. They're great at what they do. They have good audiences. They're doing all the right things, but they're so worried about what business is going to work best, what product is going to work best, what idea is going to work best, what content is going to work best, that they don't take any action. But what they don't realize is there is no wrong choice. There's also no right choice. All there is action. You have to take action. You learn from that action, and then you take another action, and then you learn from that action, and then you take another action. That's this entire game. What works for me may not work for you, and what works for you would definitely not work for me. And so there is no wrong choice. You can't fuck up. All you can do is take action. And if you have to learn and take a step back, you take a step back. If you have to learn and get to take a step forward, well, congratulations. Good for fucking you. But there's no reality where you're going to take the wrong choice. There's no reality where you're going to take the right choice. You just have to take action. One of the biggest things that paralyzes so many young entrepreneurs is they're worried about what to choose. It's why there's entire industries, there's entire YouTube channels built on what is the best business to start. There's channels with hundreds of millions of views telling you what the best business to start is, without any of their audience understanding that they're fucking lying to you. They're just telling you what business works for them. But the reality for 99.999% of you is that every single action you take is the right choice, because every action you take is moving you towards the eventual thing that will work. But if you take no action, you will never fucking get there. So it is a complete waste of time. Any time spent watching a fucking Iman Gadzhi video about what business is great to start is a waste of your fucking time. All you have to do is start with anything. Sell digital products, write emails, launch a course, whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't fucking matter. You just have to start. And so if you're in this position where you've built a bit of an audience, maybe you're making content, you've done a few things, and you're worried about what to do next, take the first idea that comes to mind and do it. Don't think any longer about it. Take the first idea that comes to mind and do it, and then learn from that action. Take the feedback from your audience. If you don't get a single sale, that is a lesson. That is data that can drive your next decision, and then your next decision, and then your next decision. And if you can do that all year next year, you'll achieve more than most people are capable of comprehending. And it won't be because you made the right choice. It'll be because you fucking started and committed to moving forward. And number 5 is kind of an extension of that, but understand that if you do this, success next year is not guaranteed. I cannot guarantee that you'll get to the end of next year and you'll be making 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month, achieving your wildest dreams. I cannot promise you that. But what I can promise you is that if you do these next 12 months properly, it will put you on the path of eventually achieving more than you're currently capable of comprehending. See, the issue with videos like this, and what I wanted to finish on, is a lot of them put so much weight on these next 12 months. A lot of them make it feel as though it's make or break. But the reality for all of you is that if you get to the end of next year and you've done your best and you haven't achieved what you want yet, next year is not a failure. All you've done is taken a giant step in the direction of what you want to achieve. Because for most of you, the results of what you're doing will remain invisible for a long period of time. There is going to be a long stint of time where you're going to work eye-wateringly hard and feel like you're achieving nothing for it. And then eventually, in a moment, faster than you can possibly comprehend, all of those results, everything you've done in those years will compound exponentially in one single moment. And so understand that if you do this right, I cannot guarantee success, but I can guarantee that if you commit to this for the next 12 months, you will be so much more of the kind of person you need to be in order to eventually achieve far beyond your wildest imagination. So don't put too much weight on 2025. It's not make or break. It's just one step on the journey of eventually achieving your wildest dreams.